Peter Van Sant from CBS News. We received a call today from a member of an academic group who said he was on a tour group that was at the Pad 39B on Saturday night. This group was supposed to get off the bus to take a close look at the shuttle, but was not allowed to because this caller says they were told that a derrick arm had struck one of the tanks on the shuttle and that some repair work was being done. Are you aware of this incident, and are you aware of any problems at all with any of with either the external tank or the two solid rocket boosters?
No, we looked at that on Saturday. There was not even in the same area that of the tank. It was a small box, heater box that had about a quarter of an inch of the insulation out of 5 inches that was scraped. It was a very minor scrape. It was repaired, and everybody, all the experts in the program, took a look at that, and so we closed it off at that point in time.
Wait for the microphone. They have to have the microphone.
There was no damage to any tank, or this arm did not strike any tank as far as
Not to my knowledge.
Astronaut Alan Bean, what about this report today? We're talking about safety and whether the pressure on NASA to get these launches, particularly after they've been delayed a time or two, up there and out there and move on to the next one. When you were an astronaut, if someone had told you that there were icicles forming on the bottom of the spaceship, as happened this morning, would you have been concerned about that, even if NASA said, well, we've looked it over and we've delayed for 2 hours? Would that have been of concern to you?
If someone mentioned it, I would say to myself, I wonder what having icicles on there means. And I would say, I know that back in Launch Control Center, they're checking with the experts on icicles, if you will, to see what he thinks, or the team that's concerned with temperature or the environment around the spacecraft and the booster. And I would feel confident if they came back to me and said, icicles are okay, that they said that from a position of knowledge, testing, study. They didn't just look out the window and say, it ought to be okay, I think it's okay. They would have had data to prove it's okay, or they wouldn't have gone. They'd have said, let's don't go, we'll do some testing and go some other day.
And what about the report that over the weekend that one of the cranes that was helping to set up the shuttle launch accidentally bumped into one of the fuel tanks? Now, Mr. Moore, the current director of the Space Center, this afternoon when asked that question said, well, yes, in effect that happened, but we checked it out and we think everything was okay. Would that have been of concern to you?
No, because once again, Mr. Moore has his own integrity plus the integrity of his team behind him. Believe me, NASA operates as a close-knit family, like you said earlier in this program, and nobody is going to let anything go by that they feel is a safety consideration. Things that have bitten us before in the space program are things that we didn't know. We thought we knew, and then they were wrong. We've never had a failure that I know of in the space program where people stood up and said, this needs to be fixed, it's going to be a failure later on, something's going to break, this is going to blow up. If they ever say that, we go study the problem and we solve it, and we make sure finally that everybody agrees it's safe. So if you take a look back in the history of the space program, you'll find that things that have hurt us in the past have been things that we all agreed were okay, and we found out later we'd made a mistake. So I feel that that's what's going to happen here, that it's not going to be something anybody knows about at this moment.
I was just going to say, and Peter, you've had a long day already. You've been on the air all day long, as most other people have been involved with what happened today. But everybody and their brother, those of us in the press and outside the press, are being pressed to speculate, and everyone is looking for a cause. I don't want to say a scapegoat, but a cause. What was it? An icicle? Was it a tank rupture? Did someone not do their job? Did a crane hit a tank and no one tell us about it? I think it's unfair at this point in time of all of us, in the press and out of it, to try and find or put a finger on anybody for the cause of this accident. It occurred. I think we've got to deal with it in a manner in which we can best prevent it from ever occurring again, pick up the pieces, and learn something, if you will, as we hopefully do from all tragedies like this, and press on. It's not going to do any good, and Lynn and you and I have been close to this before, it's not going to do any good to try and find out who did what wrong at this point in time.
This combination before guaranteed an accident from the moment the solid rocket boosters were ignited, January 28th. Weeks before the launch, the third segment of the four-segment booster was damaged and had to be replaced. The new segment had been lying on its side, and its weight had caused a slump in the tubular casing. A crane was used to push the casing into a more rounded shape. The commission learned the leak which led to the accident started at a point where the crane exerted the most pressure. This block, combined with cold weather effects on the rubber-like O-rings which sealed the joint and poor insulating putty inside the joint, allowed the leak to continue. The leak melted a 2.5-foot hole in the side of the booster, allowing it to swing wildly and puncture the hydrogen and oxygen containers which make up the huge liquid fuel tank. When the two chemicals mixed, they caused the explosion. NASA is already testing a redesigned solid rocket booster at the Marshall Space Flight Center, a booster which has a metal catch inside the joint which could prevent a future failure. From inside a mock-up of the solid rocket booster, this is the area where the joint failure occurred. The Commission expects NASA to conduct more tests in test articles such as this one in the future before the shuttle ever flies again. John Holloman, CNN, from inside a solid rocket booster at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama.